My name is Putnam Ingram, and I was 68 years old the winter my son measured my house without telling me why. 4 months later, I was sitting at a public library computer in a rented room that measured 320 square feet, looking at a photograph of my own kitchen table. My family home, 4 bedrooms, 37 years, the porch steps I rebuilt myself, was listed for $389 a night. The cover photo was my wife's peony bed. Strangers were sleeping in my house. I was sleeping beside a parking lot. Before we go any further, take a second to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I like knowing who's sitting with me. There was one line in that listing my son should have read more carefully. It took the town 4 months to read it for him. Now let me take you back to February 9th, the morning I woke up on my own driveway. I was spreading grit on the driveway when the sky changed places with the ground. There was no warning I could name. 1 second I had the shovel, the next I was flat on my back with snow melting down my collar, and the shovel was 3 steps away, handle up, like somebody had set it down politely. I lay there and counted the seconds the way I used to count them in the fire department. 40, 60. I got up on the 4th try. 3 days at Caldwell County Medical. Atrial fibrillation, they said. They changed my heart medication and put me on something that made the words on a page slide around like water on glass. On the discharge sheet, in the same size print as everything else, was the line that mattered: no driving for 6 months. Grant came on the 2nd day with a folder under his arm. My son has always walked into rooms like he's already late for the next one. "Dad, I need you to sign something," he said. It was a limited power of attorney, medical decisions and bill paying, expires August 31st. I read it twice. The sentences kept sliding. "I'd rather wait till I'm home," I said. "Just sign it. I can't run your bills from the parking lot." So I signed it on the tray table with a strip of tape still holding the IV port in the back of my hand. My handwriting looked like somebody else's. A nurse came in with a clipboard before he left. "Mr. Ingram, we've got 44 Alder Street for your mail. Is that still good?" Grant answered before I opened my mouth. "Send it to 12 Tanner Lane," he said. "I'll handle it." I remember thinking that was thoughtful of him. They let me go home on a Thursday. I want you to understand what that house was, because a listing can't tell you. In 1997, I stripped the roof myself over 2 weeks in August, and there's a spot near the North Valley where I set 11 shingles crooked and never fixed them because Nora said crooked shingles were proof a man had been up there. In 1988, I built the kitchen table out of black walnut I bought off a farmer in Corinth. In 2013, Nora slipped on the porch steps, so I tore them out and rebuilt them with a 2-inch shorter rise and a rail on both sides. The peonies she planted in 1991 came up along the south fence every May, 40 blooms if the spring was kind. Half the women in Bellamy Falls came by with shears and a coffee can. Nora let them all cut. In the garage I had my shop. 400 tools, give or take. My father's chisels were in the flat drawer, second from the bottom. Downstairs there was a 4th room, finished carpeted, a good workspace. It has no egress window. Route 9 runs close on that side, and Nora couldn't stand the truck noise, so I never cut one. I taught building trades for 31 years. I knew exactly what that room was and exactly what it was not. That first night home, I opened the pantry looking for Nora's blue tin box. It's where she kept everything: deed insurance, the boys' birth certificates, her lists. I found it on the 2nd shelf under the flour. I put my hand on the lid and left it closed. A house isn't square footage. It's a list of things you fixed yourself, and I wasn't ready to read hers. Grant started coming 3 times a week, groceries and mail out. He never asked whether I wanted him carrying my mail. He'd scoop the pile off the hall table on his way through, tap it square against his palm, and tuck it under his arm like a newspaper. Sloane came with him twice. My daughter-in-law is 37 and photographs beautifully, which she knows. The 2nd visit, she brought a little laser gadget and went room to room, clicking it at the walls. "What's that for?" I asked. "Insurance, Dad," she said. "They want square footage now." She measured the ceiling heights, too. I didn't know an insurance company that cared how tall my rooms were. But the medication had me 2 seconds behind every conversation that month, and I let it go. On a Sunday, I went out to the porch for the paper, and Grant was standing at the far end with the phone against his ear. "The draw on Quarry Road is dead till spring," he said. "I know what the second note is." He turned, saw me, and smiled the way you smile at a customer. That afternoon, Hallie stayed behind while her parents ran to the hardware store. My granddaughter is 16 and has never once softened a fact for my benefit. "They fight about money now," she said, "since November, every night." Before they left, Sloane walked the south fence and photographed Nora's peony bed from 4 angles wide, the way you shoot a room and not a flower. "For a project," she said when she caught me watching. I asked what kind of project. She was already halfway to the car. The pitch came at dinner on the first Sunday of March with a brochure face down beside the salt. Riverview Arms, Studio 4, 320 square feet elevator building half a block from the pharmacy. "You can't drive till August," Grant said. "Who's shoveling that driveway? Who's clearing that roof?" "I've cleared that roof since Reagan, and you fell down in February." That landed because it was true, and because 2 days earlier I'd walked away from a burner with the flame still on. I hadn't told anybody. I've never been so afraid of anything as I was of myself that month. "We rent the house short-term through leaf season," he said. "Good money. It goes into a care account." "Your account, Dad. 6 months, then you're back in." Sloane put her hand on my wrist. "We just want you safe." I asked for 2 things, in writing and monthly. "I want the arrangement on paper," I said, "and I want the numbers every month." "Absolutely." Grant was already stacking plates. "I'll send it next week." Hallie hadn't said a word through the whole meal. She said one now, straight at me across the table. "Grandpa, don't sign anything." "Hallie?" Grant didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Go upstairs." She went. She looked back at me from the bottom step, and I gave her the same nod I used to give kids who'd measured right and cut wrong. 6 months, in writing, the numbers every month. I want you to notice that I got exactly one of those 3 things, and it wasn't the first 2. On March 15th, 4 men I'd never met packed up 37 years in 5 hours. They were fast, and they weren't cruel. That's the part nobody warns you about. Nobody has to be cruel. A man in a company polo held up Nora's wedding quilt, folded it in thirds, and dropped it into a black contractor bag, because that's what movers use for soft goods. I pulled it back out with both hands and carried it to the truck myself. They emptied the shop into a rental unit on Route 9. Unit 118. My table saw went in sideways. My father's chisels went in a milk crate with a bag of orbital sander pads on top of them. I was allowed 2 suitcases, 1 chair, 1 box of photographs, and whatever fit on my lap. I put the blue tin box in the suitcase without opening it. Hallie showed up at noon in her school clothes and went straight out back. When she came in, her backpack sat differently on her shoulder. She waited until her father was arguing with the driver about the dolly. "I took Grandma's seed tin," she said, "and 3 bulbs, don't tell them." "Which 3? "The dark red ones by the post." Those were the 1991 originals. She'd picked right. I got in Grant's car with the quilt across my knees. As we backed out, I saw him tape a sheet of paper to the garage door. White printed, 4 pieces of tape. "What's that?" I asked. "Instructions," he said, and pulled onto Alder. I turned around in the seat, but we were past the mailbox by then, and I never did get to read it. Studio 4 had 1 window, and it faced the parking lot. 320 square feet, a single induction burner, no oven, a radiator that came on at 2 in the morning and knocked twice, like a neighbor who wasn't going to wait. I want to be honest with you. I didn't fall apart. I made it decent. I put the chair by the window because that's where the light was between 3 and 5. I hung our wedding picture on the 1 nail already in the wall. I went down to Bellamy Hardware, asked Ed for whatever was in the cutoff bin, and built a 4-foot shelf on Tuesday with a borrowed drill and my own square. Ed watched me measure twice out of habit. "You need work put?" "I got shelves," he said. "I've got shelves now," I said. Without a truck, the town got bigger. 12 minutes to the pharmacy, 9 to the library, 28 minutes door to door from Riverview Arms to 44 Alder Street, I know because I timed it in April the first time I walked out there, just to look at the roofline. The first month came and went, no paper, no numbers. I called 3 times. Grant texted back the same 2 words every time. Working on it. In the second week of June, I was coming in with a bag of groceries when Mr. Faraday from the first floor held the door for me. He's 81 and he watches the parking lot like it owes him money. "You're the fella whose place is up on the app," he said. I set the bag down on the mail table. "What app?" I said. "The Bellamy Falls Library has 2 public computers." I took the second one and typed my own address into the search bar with 1 finger. It came up in under a second. The Alder House Sleeps 12, historic 4BR farmhouse, fire pit, leaf season favorite. The cover photo was Nora's peony bed in full May bloom shot wide from 4 angles worth of practice. I scrolled. Photo 7 was my kitchen table with a glass vase on it and 2 lemons in a bowl. Photo 11 was my shop swept empty, captioned bonus flex space. Photo 14 was the downstairs room with a bed in it, made up in white and 1 word underneath. Bedroom. Host Sloan I, co-host Warren K, superhost badge. Calendar booked solid through October 25th, 389 a night in leaf season, 240 in the shoulder weeks. I did the arithmetic the way I've priced lumber my whole life, in my head, out loud, under my breath. 4 months. Call it $6,000 a month low. Not $1 had reached me. Not 1 page of paper. Not 1 number. The woman at the desk asked if I was all right. I told her I was fine. I sat there another 40 minutes and read every line of that listing twice, including the house rules, which said quiet hours began at 10. Somewhere in that listing was a sentence that was going to cost my son everything he had. I didn't see it that afternoon. Neither did he. I walked home the long way, past Alder on the far side of the street. I waited 2 days so I'd be steady, and then I called from the flip phone I'd bought at the drugstore. "Grant, who's in my house?" A pause with an office in it. Keyboard, somebody laughing down a hall. "Dad, where'd you hear that? Who's in my house? Where's the money and where's my paperwork?" Okay. He took a breath the way he does before a presentation. "We're protecting the asset. You want it to sit there empty and rot? Vacant houses go downhill fast." "It's not vacant. I lived in it." "You live at Riverview." I let that one sit. Out my window, a woman was scraping a windshield in June, and I remember thinking she was scraping pollen, and that I would have told Nora about it. Sloan took the phone. "Do you have any idea what caring for you costs?" she said. "We're the ones bleeding money here." "Then show me the ledger and I'll stop asking." "You're being ugly, Dad." Grant came back on and used his warmest voice, which is the one I trust least. "The care account is real," he said. "I'm reconciling it. Give me 2 weeks." "I'm not asking for a favor, Grant. I'm asking for a statement." "Love you, Dad." 90 minutes later, my phone buzzed. $200 transferred with a note attached. "For groceries. Love you." I stood in the middle of that room and looked at the number for a long time. It wasn't evidence. It wasn't a crime. It was an appraisal. My son had taken everything I owned, run it through a spreadsheet, and decided what I was worth per month. The next morning I walked to the pharmacy and the girl at the counter frowned at her screen. "Mr. Ingram, we've got you at 12 Tanner Lane?" "That's my son's house." She scrolled. "It changed in February. Everything's been going there since." I stood at that counter with my reading glasses in my shirt pocket, the cheap pair because my good ones got cracked somewhere between the bedroom and the moving truck. The bank was worse. Statements, Tanner Lane. Medicare paperwork, Tanner Lane. My homeowner's policy, and this is the one I still think about, had been endorsed in April to show the property as vacant and seasonal. Nobody had asked me a single question about any of it. I went to the post office and asked to cancel a forwarding order. It took 9 days, 2 forms, and a woman named Patrice, who read the small print out loud to me without once making me feel like a child. I have not forgotten her for it. She turned the screen so I could see the date it was filed. February 11th. I looked at that for a while. I collapsed on the 9th. I signed the power of attorney on the 10th, on a tray table with tape on my hand, and on the 11th, 5 weeks before anybody sat me down at my own kitchen table and said the word My mail had already been rerouted to my son's address. The conversation in March hadn't been a decision, it had been a formality. They'd built the thing in February and walked me through the door of it in the spring, which raised a question I couldn't put down.
If my mail had been going to Tanner Lane since February, what had been in it? Saturday mornings I walked to Lori's for eggs because a man ought to sit at a counter once a week and hear other people's business. Doreen Lasky found me there in the third week of June. Doreen is my late wife's sister. She has a carrying voice and no volume control, and she has never in 66 years lowered either one for a small room. Put! She stood beside my stool so the whole place had to hear it. Now don't be stubborn about the boy. I'm eating eggs, Doreen. He's doing everything for you. Everything. And you're out there telling people he took your house. I haven't told anybody anything. Well, somebody has. She patted my shoulder twice. Hard. You just let the kids handle it now. 3 tables had gone quiet. Ray Deitch, who built a birdhouse in my shop in 1994 and now sits on the planning board, was 2 stools down with the paper folded to the sports. Then Doreen said the thing that changed the shape of the next 4 months. Grant says you've been getting confused lately. She said it kindly. That was the worst of it. He said you left the stove on. Twice. The griddle hissed. Somebody's fork touched a plate. I put $5 and 2 singles on the counter, and I thanked Lori for the coffee, and I put my coat on without hurrying, because I've learned that how a man leaves a room is the part people remember. Outside the air was warm and smelled like cut grass, and I understood something with a clarity the medication had been keeping from me since February. They'd already started telling the town I wasn't reliable. From here on, anything I said was going to need paper behind it. Dennis Pruitt knocked on Studio 4 at 7:40 on a Monday morning, holding 3 pieces of paper and a grudge. Ennis drove truck for 30 years and has shared my back fence for 30 more. He does not visit. He arrives. 11 people, he said before I got the door all the way open. 11 put, Friday to Sunday. 3 cars parked on your lawn right on the grass. Music till 1. And one of them relieved himself on my fence. Sit down, Dennis. I don't want to sit. He sat. I called the town, he said. Lady in the clerk's office, Vanessa. She told me to check something called the short-term rental registry. He put the first paper on my new shelf. Your address isn't in it, not anywhere in it. What's that mean? Means whoever's renting your place is doing it without a permit. He shoved the second paper at me. And here, this came to me in the mail, to me, because I'm what they call in a butter. I held it up to the window light. Town of Bellamy Falls, printed on yellow stock, a notice to neighboring property owners. It explained that certain applications require a public hearing, and that abutters would be notified by mail, and that the file would be available for inspection at the town clerk's office during business hours. The file. Available for inspection. I read that sentences 3 times. Dennis, my voice came out steadier than my hands. That book, the registry, anybody can look at it. That's what she said, it's public. 30 years I've had your back fence, he told me at the door. I'm not starting now with strangers. The clerk's office opened at 8:30. Let me stop the story right here for a second, because Dennis said something that morning I've thought about ever since. He said it's public. 2 words, and they changed my whole year. If somebody ever told you to leave the paperwork to them, and you finally went and looked yourself, I'd like to hear what you found. Put it in the comments. And if this story's got hold of you, hit subscribe so I know to keep telling it straight. Alright, 8:30 Monday morning, Town Hall. It's 22 minutes on foot from Riverview Arms to Town Hall, uphill after the bridge. Margie Vanessa has been town clerk for 22 years and used to bake with Nora for the church sale. She didn't do me any favors that morning. She did her job, which turned out to be considerably better. Short-term rental registry, she said, and set the binder on the counter facing me. Every permitted property in town. It's public record put. Anybody can read it. I turned the pages myself. Alder Street had 2 entries, number 12 and number 61. 44 wasn't there. There's no permit on it, she said. What would there have to be? She counted it off on her fingers, and I wrote every word on the back of Dennis's yellow notice. An application, an owner's affidavit notarized, signed by whoever's on the deed, a fire safety certification, a butter notice by mail, a public hearing before the planning board, she tapped the counter,
And you can't advertise before you're permitted. Operating without one, the fines run per night. Per night? Every night. Then she pulled the grand list up on her screen, because I asked and because it's public too. 44 Alder Street, she read. Owner of record Putnam A. Ingram. Deed recorded November 1988. No transfers. I put both hands flat on that counter. So I still own it? Margie looked at me over her glasses, and her voice went somewhere softer than clerk. Put, you never stopped. 4 months in one room, and nobody had ever taken the house. They'd only moved me out of it. One more thing, she said. If they ever want to do this legally, they'll have to apply, and they'll need your signature to do it. The calendar showed a gap on Tuesday. No booking. I walked out there in the heat 28 minutes with my key in my hand. I cut that key myself in 1994 on the machine at Bellamy Hardware, and the head of it is worn smooth as a river stone. There was a keypad where my lock used to be. I stood on my own porch, the porch I rebuilt with a 2-inch shorter rise, and pressed the key against a piece of plastic that didn't have a slot in it. Then I went around back. The peony bed was gone, not trimmed, not moved, gone. 32 feet of Nora's south fence had been scraped to bare dirt covered in white stone and set with a 6-person hot tub on a composite pad. There was a little wooden sign staked in the gravel. Guest patio. Please no glass. I want to tell you I felt rage. What I felt was quiet and cold and very far away, like watching a house burn from the far side of a field. Through the kitchen window I could see my walnut table. Somebody had set a hot pot down on it. There was a dark ring burned into the grain right of center, about 8 inches across. The back door opened. A woman in a swimsuit and a towel looked at me. Can I help you? I'm the owner, I said. The owner's Sloan. No, ma'am, I'm the owner. She stepped back inside and shut the door, and I heard her voice on a phone through the glass. 14 minutes later, a Bellamy Falls cruiser came up Alder Street with its lights on and parked in front of my house. My son had called the police on me. Corey Whitmer built a spice rack in my shop in 2010 and glued it up backwards twice. He got out of the cruiser slowly, with his hat in his hand, which told me everything about how the next 10 minutes were going to go. Mr. Ingram? Corey? Sir, dispatch has a trespass call at this address. I know. Run the address. He ran it from the laptop in the cruiser, and I watched his shoulders change.
Owner of record is you, he said. Grant's car came up Alder fast and stopped crooked at the curb. He got out talking. Officer, that's my father. He's confused. He's been having episodes since February. Say it looking at me, I said. He didn't. Whitmer stood between us in the middle of my driveway in the sun, with a woman in a towel watching from my back steps, and Dennis Pruitt standing at his fence with his arms folded. Mr. Ingram, nobody's removing you from your own property, Whitmer said. But there are paying guests inside tonight. I'd ask you to leave for now. Keep the peace. That's the part I'd like you to sit with. The law was on my side, standing right there in uniform, and I still had to walk home. Grant made a mistake then. He was rattled, and he wanted to sound like the responsible party. Everything's handled, he said. I've got all the paperwork in with the town. I turned around at the end of the driveway. What paperwork, son? He didn't answer. Whitmer walked me to the sidewalk and said one thing quiet off to the side. Mr. Ingram, go see somebody about that power of attorney. The senior legal aid office in Caldwell County charges on a sliding scale and shares a hallway with a dance studio. Ruth Marchetti is 55, talks fast, and doesn't decorate anything she says. I brought the blue tin box and opened it in front of her the first time since the funeral. Deed 1988, insurance binder, Grant's birth certificate, Nora's wedding ring in a fold of tissue, and a sheet of legal pad in her handwriting dated 2019 titled, If I Go First. 19 numbered items. Number 6 was, Put the tax bill comes in September, don't let it sit. Ruth read the power of attorney twice and set it down. This is limited, she said. Medical and bill payment. Expires August 31st. And there's no real property authority in it. None. He cannot buy, sell, lease, or sign anything about that house. And it can be canceled anytime you want, as long as you have capacity.
which you obviously do. She wrote out 4 steps on a legal pad and turned it around so I could read it. 1. See your doctor, get a written capacity assessment. 2. Sign a revocation, notarized. 3. Record the revocation at the Registry of Deeds. Because this touches real estate and the public record has to match, 4. Written notice to every third party, bank, insurance, and the town. I don't want him arrested, I said. I want him stopped. Then we do it on paper. She capped her pen. Mr. Ingram, one question. If that power of attorney gives him nothing on real estate, who signed the application? Your son says he filed with the town. I sat there with my hand on my wife's tin box and had no answer at all. Grant came to Studio 4 on the last Friday in July. No groceries this time. A folder. He didn't sit. There's only the one chair. I'm going to be straight with you, he said, which is how he starts when he isn't. Go ahead. Your rent here comes out of my account. If you make this difficult, I stop paying it. All right. I've spoken to an attorney. He said it to the window, not to me. About a capacity evaluation, guardianship. The radiator knocked once in July, for no reason at all. You do that, I said. I do what's necessary, he turned around. Dad, listen to me. Nobody takes a confused old man seriously. Don't make me prove it. Out in the hall, Sloane was standing where she could hear. When I looked at her, she looked down the corridor at the elevator. Here is what he was telling me in plain language. If I spoke up, he would ask a court to declare that I couldn't be trusted with my own life.
And he had spent 5 months seeding that story at the diner, at church, and every kitchen in town. If it worked, I'd lose the house, the say, and the right to choose the room I died in. He left the folder on my shelf while he took a call in the hall and picked it up on his way out. One page slipped and stayed. An email printout. From Warren Kessel. Subject line in bold. StarTR permit app need owner SIG by 9/12. I folded it into quarters and put it in my shirt pocket over the pen. Thank you, son, I said. Something about the way I said it made him leave faster. I took it back an inch at a time, and every inch had an office in a line. July 30th, Dr. Elaine Boyd, 40 minutes of questions, a clock. I had to draw a list of words I had to hold, 29 out of 30. She wrote a letter on her own stationery stating that Putnam A. Ingram is fully capable of managing his personal legal and financial affairs. August 3rd, the revocation. Signed at the credit union window with a notary stamp and a witness named Kimberly. Then I rode the county bus 40 minutes to the courthouse and had that revocation recorded in the land records so the public file would match the truth. It cost $15. The clerk handed me a stamped copy with the date and time on it, and I have never in my life been so glad to hold a receipt. While I was there, I bought 3 certified copies of the deed, August 14th, 6 months to the day. The doctor cleared me, and the state gave me back my license. Unit 118 smelled like dust and two-stroke. My '04 F-150 turned over on the 3rd try, coughed and idled. I sat in that truck in the storage lot with my hands on the wheel for about 10 minutes before I put it in gear. Then I mailed certified letters, the bank, the insurance carrier, and one to Margie Vaness at the town clerk's office with a recorded revocation attached, informing the town of Bellamy Falls that any authority previously held by Grant Ingram was terminated as of August 3rd. 2 days later, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Put, Margie said. We took in an application on 44 Alder Street Friday. The file was public, so Margie copied it for me at 10 cents a page, and I paid the $4.60. I read it at the counter, standing up. Application for short-term rental permit, 44 Alder Street. Applicant Grant Ingram, Operations Manager Warren Kessel, filed August 12th. Page 3 was the owner's affidavit. Notarized, sworn, Putnam A. Ingram by Grant Ingram, attorney in fact, sworn on August 12th. Under an authority with no real property power in it to begin with, and one that had been revoked and recorded in the land records 9 days earlier. Page 5 was the fire safety self-certification. 4 legal bedrooms, 2 means of egress from each sleeping room, signed by the applicant. I taught building trades for 31 years. I ran into burning buildings in this town for 22.
There is no egress window in that downstairs room. I'm the man who decided not to cut one in 1996 because my wife couldn't sleep over the truck noise on Route 9. Page 1, line 9. Date operations commenced June 1st, 2026. They had put in writing that they'd been renting my house for over 4 months without a permit. Margie, has the fire department ever inspected that address? She checked. Never. I did 3 things at that counter. I filed a written objection as owner of record with a certified copy of the deed and the recorded revocation attached. I put my name on the sign-up sheet for public comment at the October 8th hearing. Line 6.
And I asked her to send the file to Deputy Chief Sowers for review, which was standard, and which she'd have done anyway. Then I drove to Hallie's school and waited in the lot. "You free the night of the 8th?" I said. I'm going to step out of the story for a minute, because that sign-up sheet is where the whole thing turned. For 4 months, I'd been the man the town talked about. On October 8th, I was going to be the man on line 6 with 3 minutes. If you've ever had to stand up and prove something obvious about your own life, your own name, your own house, tell me about it below. Then stay with me. 90 folding chairs, Tuesday night, Bellamy Falls Town Hall, is brick-built in 1911, and the meeting room floor announces every person who walks across it. They set out 90 folding chairs on October 8th and ran out at 7:05. Men stood along the back wall with their caps in their hands. The coffee urn had been empty since 6. The ceiling fan up front runs a half-inch out of true. It has ticked for as long as I've been coming to that room. The board sat 5 across. Nadine Kolb in the chair, Ray Deitch on her left, who made a birdhouse in my shop in 1994. Tammy Osgood, 2 seats down, class of 99, who could cut a dovetail better than any boy in that building. Margie Vaness sat at the side table with the files squared in front of her. Alma Sowers, deputy fire chief, stood against the wall by the exit sign because she always stands by the exit. A young man from the Bellamy Falls Record had the front row and a fresh notebook. 4 of my neighbors had come to speak against short-term rentals in general. Dennis Pruitt was one of them, in a pressed shirt which I had not seen since Nora's funeral. Grant and Sloan sat at the applicants' table with Warren Kessel and a laptop already plugged into the projector. I sat in the 3rd row on the aisle in my canvas coat with a craft envelope on my knee. Hallie sat on my right in her school jacket. Grant turned around at 7:10 and saw me. His face went white for about half a second, and then he smiled at the clerk and turned back. "Sit up straight," I told Hallie. "We're not here to be angry." My son is good at this part. I'd never seen him do it, and I want to be fair, he was good. 6 minutes, no notes. He talked about family stewardship of his father's legacy home. He talked about responsible hospitality and quiet hours and a 24-hour local contact. He put up a number, 37 seasonal jobs supported in this town, and let it sit there. Slide 4 was the peony bed. It filled the wall. 32 feet of Nora's south fence in full May bloom, the dark red ones by the post. The whole thing lit up, 8 feet tall behind my son's shoulder. 3 months in the ground under white stone and a hot tub, and there it was, glowing on the wall of the town hall. The room made that small, warm sound rooms make. Somebody said, "Oh, that's lovely." A woman 2 rows up leaned to her husband and said she used to cut those. Hallie took hold of my sleeve and did not let go. Then Grant said it. "My father is comfortably settled at Riverview," he said, "and he fully supports this application." Sloan leaned into the microphone. "He's 90% of why we do this," she said. Nadine Kolb had a pen in her hand, and she used it to point at the projector. "Is the owner present tonight?" Grant didn't miss a beat. "My father doesn't get around much anymore, ma'am." Behind me near the door, I heard a chair scrape as somebody shifted their weight. The clerk cleared her throat and read from the sheet in front of her. "Public comment, line 6, Putnam Ingram." The floor announced me the whole way up. I didn't look at my son. I set the craft envelope on the podium and squared it out of habit the way I square anything before I cut it. "My name is Putnam Ingram." The fan ticked, the microphone whined once and settled. "I live at Riverview Arms, apartment 4. I own 44 Alder Street. I have owned it since November of 1988. I looked up. "I taught shop at the high school for 31 years. Some of you built your first birdhouse in my room." Ray Deitch put his pen down.
I laid 3 documents on the podium, one at a time, and named each one as I did it. Certified copy of the deed, owner of record myself, no transfers. A revocation of power of attorney signed and notarized August 3rd and recorded in the county land records that same afternoon. Time-stamped. A letter from my physician dated July 30th stating I am fully capable of managing my own affairs. 90 people, and I could hear the clock in the hall. The owner's affidavit in that application was sworn on August 12th. By then, that authority had been revoked and recorded for 9 days, and it never included real property to begin with. I put my hand flat on the deed. I did not sign it. I do not support it. Somebody in the back said something under their breath. Grant stood up so fast his chair went over. Nadine Kolb didn't raise her voice either. "Mr. Ingram, sit down. Your father has the floor. I'm not here to punish my son," I said. "I'm here because somebody used my name. It's the only thing I've got left that nobody paid for." Nadine Kolb turned to the side table. "Madam Clerk, what's in the file?" Margie Vaness didn't editorialize. She read, "No permit has ever been issued for 44 Alder Street. The application states operations commenced June 1st. Rooms, tax filings for the property show 61 nights rented between June 1st and tonight."
She squared the page. "All of them unpermitted." The room did the arithmetic out loud. I heard at least 3 people say 61. "Deputy Chief Sowers," Kolb said, "fire." Alma came off the wall with the site plan already in her hand. "There's no inspection on record for this address. Ever." She unfolded the plan on the rail so the front rows could see and put one finger on the lower level. "This room is certified in the application as a legal bedroom with 2 means of egress. There's no egress window. There's no window." She let that sit for exactly as long as it needed. "The listing advertises sleeps 12, she said. "That's 12 people in one stairwell." A woman near the front said, "Oh my God!" into her hand. I had one thing left and I made it short. "I'm the man who decided not to cut that window," I said, "in 1996. My wife couldn't sleep over the truck noise on Route 9. Nobody asked me before they called it a bedroom." Behind the applicant's table, Warren Kessel closed the laptop, unplugged the cable, coiled it, and walked out the side door. He didn't say a word to Grant. He didn't look at him. The door shut on its slow closer and it took a long time. The young man from the record turned to a fresh page. Nadine Kolb pulled the board, and none of them took more than 2 seconds. Denied 5-0. She read the rest into the record in the flat voice they use for things that are already decided. Cease and desist effective immediately. The false statement in the sworn affidavit referred to the town attorney. Penalties for unpermitted operation assessed per night against the operators. And under the ordinance, an address that comes in with a false certification is barred from applying again for 2 years. 2 years. On my house, because of what my son swore to. Then Sloane stood up, and she wasn't performing. "You told me he signed it." Her voice cracked on the second word. 90 people heard it. "Grant, you told me he signed it." She got her purse and went up the center aisle with her chin up and tears coming down anyway, and the room let her through the way rooms do. Grant stayed at that table by himself with his hand still on a laptop that wasn't on anymore. I put my 3 documents back in the envelope. I buttoned my coat. Hallie stood when I stood. On the way out, I stopped beside my son's chair and put my hand on his shoulder, and I left it there for about 3 seconds. I don't know why. He's my boy. I taught him to ride a bicycle on Alder Street. Then I walked out. Everybody in that room was waiting for me to say one more thing. I'd already said the only true sentence I had. Out on the steps, my phone buzzed in my coat. 14 missed calls. Not one of them from Grant. It took 6 days for the numbers to land, and they landed like lumber off a truck. The listing came down within 48 hours. 9 remaining bookings were canceled and refunded roughly $11,400 straight back out of an account that never had my name on it. The town issued its notice. 61 nights, $300 a night assessed against the operators. $18,300. The insurance carrier moved faster than anybody. Undisclosed commercial use voids the policy. They terminated it, and the replacement coverage I had to buy came in $1,870 a year higher. Then came the one Grant never saw coming, and I take no pleasure in it. He is a loan officer. He signs things for a living. A licensed lending professional who swears out a false affidavit is a conduct problem with teeth, and his credit union opened an internal review the Monday after the paper ran.
They suspended him pending the outcome.
Warren Kessel's attorney sent a letter within the week. Mr. Kessel, it explained, had relied entirely on representations made by Mr. Ingram regarding ownership and authorization. Mr. Kessel considered himself a victim of the same misrepresentation. 2 men had split that money all summer. When the bill came, it turned out only one of them had ever signed anything. And on the 4th day an envelope arrived at Studio 4 from a law office in Rutland. Inside was a full accounting of every booking, every payout, and every dollar taken in on 44 Alder Street between June 1st and October 8th. 7 months earlier, my son had promised me that statement and told me he'd send it next week. It got to me the way everything else finally did. Through the mail, in writing, from somebody who had to. On October 22nd, a locksmith took the keypad off my front door and put a deadbolt back where one belonged. 221 days. I stood in my own hallway, and the house smelled like a hotel. Lemon cleaner and other people's shampoo. Dennis came over with a legal pad, and Hallie came with her phone camera, and we went room by room writing it down, because Ruth told me to, and because it kept my hands busy. The burn ring on the walnut table, 8 inches dead center, right down into the grain. 16 feet of hallway floor scarred where somebody dragged luggage. The stair rail loose at the 3rd baluster. Out back, 6 tons of white stone where 40 peonies used to come up every May, and a hot tub that needed a crane truck and $400 to take away. Then Unit 118 on Route 9. More than half my shop was gone. Sold. There was a consignment receipt from a shop in Rutland folded in with the paperwork, itemized in my son's handwriting on the top line. The table saw, the planer, the good router. 60 years of a working man's hands listed like a garage sale. My father's chisels were still in the milk crate. Nobody wanted old wooden handles. I sat down on the porch steps I built in 2013, the ones with the shorter rise and the rail on both sides, and I cried for the first time in this whole story. Hallie sat down next to me and didn't say anything for a while, which is a gift not many 16-year-olds know how to give. "I kept 3 bulbs, Grandpa," she said finally. "They're in my closet." Grant came to 44 Alder on a Thursday, in the cold rain at the end of October. No slides, no folder, no vocabulary. I didn't ask him in. He tried the old voice first because it was the only tool he had left in the bag. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my career?" I didn't answer. Rain came off the gutter I hung in 2001. Then his face came apart. "I didn't know how to tell you I was broke." There it was. 8 words and the whole summer inside them. "All right," I said. "Now listen, because I'm only saying this once." I gave him 4 conditions, and I gave them to him in order. 1. I won't sue you if you give me the full accounting, which I now have. 2. You repay the tools at the consignment value, $9,400, monthly whatever you can carry. 3. You take up the stone out back and put your grandmother's bed back by hand on Saturdays. Not a crew, you. 4. You file a written correction with the planning board stating your father never signed that affidavit. He agreed to 3 of them. "I can't do 4, he said. "Dad, that's my license." "Then that's where we are." I closed the door. I didn't slam it. A man my age doesn't need to slam a door to be understood. 3 days later, the correction was filed. I found out why at Thanksgiving. Allie told her father one sentence at the dinner table without raising her voice, the way she said everything since she was 4. "I'm not going to lie for you." The record ran it on page 1 with a headline that took nothing out and put nothing in. Planning board denies Alder Street rental permit. Owner says he never signed. Then the town did what towns do. Some people brought casseroles. Some people crossed to the other side of Main Street. A man I've known since 1979 told me at the transfer station that family business ought to stay in the family. Doreen called on a Sunday night and cried at me for 11 minutes. "You ruined your own son," she said. "You could have handled it at the kitchen table." "Doreen, I didn't take his house. I stopped him from selling nights in mine. It's the same thing." "Come see something," I said. "Tuesday. Bring your coat." Grant and Sloan sold the place on Tanner Lane in November and moved into a rental in Rutland.
Hallie lost her senior year at Bellamy Falls High. That's a real cost, and no grandfather gets to feel good about it, and I don't. Tuesday, Doreen came. I walked her down my own basement stairs and turned on the light and stood her in the middle of that finished room. Carpet drywall, a made bed still in it. "Turn around," I said. "Show me a window." She turned all the way around, concrete painted white on 3 sides. "They advertised it as a bedroom," I said. 12 people, 1 stairwell. Doreen Lasky is the loudest woman in Caldwell County, and she stood in that room for a good half-minute without a sound. Then she said she was sorry, right there standing on the carpet. I said thank you, and I meant it, and we went upstairs and had coffee at the table with the burn ring in it. Ruth Marchetti put the house in a revocable trust in December.
She drew up a new power of attorney with an independent successor named in it, not my son, and set a monitoring alert on the land records so if anybody ever files anything against 44 Alder Street, I hear about it the same week. She printed the list of third parties who'd been notified, and I taped it inside the kitchen cabinet door next to Nora's list from 2019. 2 women, 10 years apart, telling me to keep my paperwork where I can find it. I never went near the rental registry again. I had no interest in a permit, and after what that room had been through, no interest in strangers. What I did instead was rent 2 rooms upstairs on a 12-month lease to Kate Delahunt, a travel nurse at the county hospital. $11.50 a month, first and last, a signed lease, everything above board and dull as a plank. She works nights. She comes in at 7 in the morning, smelling like coffee and disinfectant, and puts her boots by the door. I didn't want the house full of strangers. I wanted it full of somebody who knew where the coffee was. And on Thursday mornings, I opened the garage. 5 kids from the neighborhood, ages 9 to 14, one at a time on the bench. No charge, never has been. We started with a step stool because a step stool teaches you square, and square is the whole business. I had about a third of my shop left to teach with. My father's chisels came out of the milk crate and went back in the flat drawer second from the bottom, where they've been since 1971. He came the first Saturday in November, and every Saturday after that until April, 6 tons of white stone, 1 wheelbarrow at a time, down the side yard to a pile behind the garage. In November it rained. In January, the top 4 inches froze, and he had to break it with a bar. We didn't talk much. When we talked, it was about things you can measure. How deep? Same as your grandmother did it, 8 inches. She was right. He'd nod and go back at it. Some Saturdays he was there 4 hours and said 11 words. The $400 came the first of every month, and he wrote a receipt by hand each time and made me sign it. I don't know where he got that idea. I signed every one and I put them in Nora's blue tin box because that's where paper goes in this house now. Sloan never came back. In February she sent a 4-page letter. I read it twice and didn't answer it, and I didn't throw it away either. It's in the box too. Hallie has the front bedroom upstairs on weekends. She learned to drive stick in the F-150 in the church lot, and she stalled it 11 times, and she has never once been embarrassed about anything in her life. One Saturday in March, Grant came up the porch steps and stopped at the loose baluster. "How do you fix that?" I could have had it tight in 90 seconds. I went to the drawer and got a screwdriver and put it in his hand. "Third one up," I said. "Pull it plumb first, then set the screw." I sat on the top step and watched my son do it himself. They opened the second week of May. 3 bulbs out of a 16-year-old's closet, and the seed tin from Nora's shelf, and one winter of a man on his knees in dirt he'd covered with stone. 11 plants along the south fence. The dark red ones by the post came first, the 1991 originals, 4 blooms the size of my fist. Word travels. By the 3rd day there were 2 women at the fence with shears and a coffee can the way there always were. I let them all cut. That was never mine to change. Dennis passed a mug across the fence on Saturday mornings and complained about the town budget. Kate came in off nights at 7 with her boots in her hand and a key that fits an actual lock. Thursday mornings, the garage filled up with kids and sawdust and one radio nobody agrees on. The house is loud again. It's the right kind of loud. There's one more thing on my key ring. Riverview Arms Studio 4. I never turned it in. I pay $11 a month to keep the key, and the manager thinks I'm sentimental, and maybe I am. A carpenter keeps the first nail he ever bent. People kept telling me I'd been downsized.
I hadn't. I'd been standing in the smallest room I ever paid for, and the deed was in my pocket the whole time. So let me ask you something before we say goodnight. If you'd been sitting in that room on October 8th, would you have taken line 6 on the sign-up sheet? Or would you have stayed home to keep the peace? Type 6 if you'd have spoken. Type peace if you'd have waited. There's no wrong answer. I waited 4 months myself. If this one stayed with you, there are more like it linked down in the description. Start with the one about the storage unit. Thank you for sitting with me.